Hello, this is Don Milne. Today I'm going to be sharing a short video to show you how to do a self-review of any Together We Serve profiles that you work on. There are 4 things you want to look at after you've completed a story and saved it to a Together We Serve profile. You want to start by looking at the shadow box and the roll of honor. Then you want to look at the profile's basic info and remembrance information. Then you want to look at the service history, and then you want to look at the albums section. If you do that, after you've written the story, you may catch a few things that you may have missed first time through. So I'm going to do an example of a story I did earlier for a Robert Boyd Brazier. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the shadow box roll of honor. So if you press shadow box and press printable shadow box, you may sometimes see a pop-up. Right now it's turned off, but after that pop-up is cleared, this is what you look at. This is the shadow box. So it's basically something that can be printed in a very concise and easy to see format. And you could look this over and see if anything kind of looked out of whack. Normally the thing I'd be looking for is this section over here, is it all like combined into one paragraph, or are there some weird ununiform characters that you wouldn't expect? Sometimes, depending on how you save a story, a quotation mark may end up giving a character that looks out of place. So that's the shadow box view. The other view you'd want to look at is the roll of honor. So here's the roll of honor page. When you first click it, it just has the basic information, but if you press full service history, you can look through it this way. And so this is how it will appear on a smartphone, obviously on a smaller size, but that's what you're looking at. So one thing you might see is, what if you have some really long URLs here at the bottom? It may fill up, if they're like super long, it may fill up 4, 5, 6, 10 lines maybe on a smartphone. So if you're seeing that sort of thing, you may want to replace that with a hyperlink instead. So that's the shadow box and roll of honor. You want to look that over really quick, see what it looks like. If you look over here where it says edit profile, that's the information that ends up over here under basic info and remembrance info. So the basic info, we show the state of birth, we got the year of birth, hometown, you may or may not have that, and we don't normally use the last address. So if this was missing, or if I had a year of birth missing, I would go back and enter that here where it says edit profile. The other basic information, the remembrance information, is on this tab right here. And this information is all good to have, because this means that at some future date, when we have 400,000 of these stories, we'll be able to look at, for instance, everybody that's at Memory Grove Memorial Cemetery, because we have that there. And it's just good to have all this basic information in this format as well as in your story. So if any of the information here in the remembrance information or basic info information is missing, you would go over here to edit profile, and then you could fix that. The next thing you want to look at is the service history, and this is probably where you'll spend most of your time during the self-review. It's because it's got the most information to cover, but the service history here has medals and awards, official badges, unofficial badges, recruit training, unit assignments, formal school and courses, combat, non-combat operations, additional info and comments, tributes from members. So it has quite a few sections you want to look at. So the main things you'd want to look for is, so did we catch the main medals and awards for that person? There's a separate training section that'll help you know which are the applicable medals and awards. But for instance, if you knew he had a Purple Heart, but that wasn't even listed, obviously you'd want to go back and add that one. Official badges, unofficial badges, and recruit training for the World War II era that we're working with, those are going to be rare that you're going to have to worry about those. So not very often. We normally, in the stories we get, don't get down to the recruiting information about that individual. If it's pertinent, then you could add it there. As far as unit assignments go, we'd want to make sure that we picked up the unit assignments that we described in the story. So this individual, he first served on the West Virginia, he then served on the USS Saratoga, and he was part of Torpedo Squadron 3. Well, Torpedo Squadron 3 was on Saratoga first, then it was moved to Yorktown. So it was a good thing I did this self-review because I'm missing the information about him serving on the Yorktown. So on this page here, we can add additional unit assignments. I'm going to type in Yorktown. You can see they're starting to show up. This is the one here, CV5. So he was on Yorktown. We might not know the exact month that he started being assigned to Yorktown, so we can leave that off. He was there during the Battle of Midway, so we will add that right there. We could probably look up, I'm not going to do it right now, we could probably look up when he moved to the Yorktown because we'll know when the Saratoga was torpedoed, and that's probably when he was transferred. So that information probably is available, but I'm just going to, at this point, just show that section there. So for service details, he was enlisted, and he was a petty officer, second class. There it is. We know he was an aviation radio man. Right there. And we can put he served until June. So now I have a new unit assignment, and we can go back to the service history. So we've added USS Yorktown. Formal schools and courses, not that common to see during World War II, so you probably won't have anything there. Combat and non-combat operations, you'll want to include that. It'll be nice at some point in the future, for instance, where we will be able to identify everybody who was at the Battle of Midway. Over here, that's what this means. We now have 378 records of people that were at the Battle of Midway. But I, for some reason, didn't put down that he was also at the Battle of Coral Sea, so I'm going to add that. So the year was 1942. And it's here on the drop-down menu. Every once in a while, you may come across a engagement that was minor, maybe not that many people were involved, and it hasn't been entered in the database. So it says here, can't find your battle. You can have them add it if you need to. Okay, so we have that in there, and then we can save operation. And back to service history. So it's a good thing I did a self-review here because there's some things that I missed. The next thing you want to look at is in the additional info and comments. Now this is the additional info section. This was something I didn't write. This was a profile that was already created on Fold 3. But as you can see, it was only this one paragraph. So our instructions when using Together We Serve is to put the story in the comment section. So I left this here that someone else had added, and I went ahead and added the story in the comment section. So I'm going to scroll down here. If there's anything that looks out of place or think that I need to add, I would just press this here and it would let me edit it, and I could go do the change. But it looks like that's pretty good. Tributes from members. So this might be added later by people who are reading the profile and want to add a tribute to that particular fallen. But it's rare that we would have to place anything there when we're creating these profiles. Two more sections to look at: military associations and other affiliations. This was added previously, but for the stories behind the stars, we'll want to add this, make sure it's there. If it's not there, go ahead and add it. We should identify this person as a fallen member, unless maybe they're a relative of yours. That'll give you an option sometimes if they're a relative of yours. Otherwise, put down fallen member, and then put the state that they were from, identified from. And some people are identified from more than one state, so we'll leave it up to you to determine which state you want to mark them for. Then the last section here is upload a document. So this is any free thing except for photograph type file. So if you had a document that was in the form of a JPEG because you took a photo of it, it wouldn't go here and upload a document. But if you had other things like doc files or PDF files, something you wanted to attach to be part of this profile, you could put them here. Maybe you did that during the research and you felt like you wanted to add it. Well, there isn't one here. So it's a good chance to look at it one more time just to make sure that you add that because you missed it. Last thing is the album section for photos. So we're doing all this from the profile. That would be under here, albums, and then photos. And it'll show you the photos that we have right now. So for this particular profile, we just have 2 photos. And if I had extra ones and I planned to put them in there as I'm doing this self-review, I may say, oh, I forgot to put those there. So this is a reminder so we can go in and see that those are added. So that's it. Those are the 4 things you want to do. Do a quick self-review. Shouldn't take more than maybe 5 minutes once you're good at it. Of course, if you find some things that need to be added, then that will take a little more time to get that done. But you're probably going to be the main person that's going to create a profile for this person that will be accessed for decades to come. So it's worth it taking a little more time to make sure you didn't miss anything. It could be polished a little bit here or tweaked a little bit there before it goes on. There are other ways that other people may be able to do a little bit of editing here or there. But if there's some of these simple things that you already know, so the example I showed, I already knew that he was at the Battle of Coral Sea. I just didn't put it in, so I added that. Or I knew that he was on the USS Yorktown, but I hadn't put that in, so I went ahead and added that back. So all those things are super helpful. I did want to show you one more thing related to service history, and this is unique to Army Air Force names you'll be doing. So under the service history, if they're in the Army Air Force, there's going to be this section called aircraft missile. So obviously they're not going to be assigned to a missiles unit back in the 1940s, but you can add the type of plane that they were flying. So for most people that were in a bomb squad, it'll probably just be one bombardier. It'll probably just be one bomber type. If they were doing transport, they might have multiple planes that they flew as transport. And if they were a fighter pilot, they might have multiple planes they flew as a fighter pilot. So that's one more section you'd want to double check on if you're doing an Air Force name. Okay, I think I've covered everything. Thanks everyone for your participation in adding stories to the Stories Behind the Stars project. Everyone gets us closer to doing all 421,000.